the method which is login, and let me remove this. So this is the way Laravel 8 maps the routes. So I will import it directly here, and we will use it in every other route. Let's close the square brackets, and let's remove this part. Let's send the request again. So we got an error also. Let me go. So we got an error about the database. So how do we solve this problem? Let's go to our env file, and let's change the data here to the data that we have in our database. This is users, this is root, this is root, and for the DB host, Docker for Mac localhost. So we have to restart the server. So let's open the terminal, and yeah, the server is restarting in Laravel 8. And now let's try the HTTP request. So let's try it again, and we successfully created the user. So now let's see it on our front end. The request is successful. Now the base URL has changed, so we won't use it anymore. So I will delete it. Let's cut this URL, and in the admin app we will create a TypeScript file, constants. So we will export default here the base URL, and we will paste the URL that we had, except we don't have admin anymore now. And here we need the user's URL also, which is similar, but we have to change the localhost port. Now we should change everywhere where the base URL is used or where the user's URL is used. For example, in the login is used the user's URL. So here we can use constants user's URL. So let's remove also the slash here. So this URL is used here. On the register is the same. So let's copy this part, add it to the register. Etc. So for the other routes, like for example dashboard, we need here the user's URL. So let's paste it. This is not user, sorry, base URL. And the same thing we will do for the influencer. So we'll change the base URL here, and we will add here user's URL. So make sure to change everywhere where these URLs belong. We want to log in with our admin now, but when we send the request, we get an error that our credentials are invalid. This is because this admin@admin.com doesn't exist in this microservice. So if we open the database, we don't have admin@admin.com here. So we need to import the data from our Laravel influencer app to this app, so they have the same data. To do it, we will create a seeder. So PHP artisan make seeder user seeder. But we won't generate fake data. We will import data from our other database. So first let's go to database.php, and here is our default connection to MySQL. Let's copy this and paste it here, and now I will rename this to old MySQL. So we need two database connections now, so we can import it from one database to the other. Now let's make some other changes. So I will keep it simple. I will put a 2 in every other constant here. And now let's go to our env file, and let's copy this constants here, and let's put a 2 in the end. So this is the same. The port in the other app is 33066. We can check it. Is this port. So the database is influencer, and the username and password are root. So now we can use this connection to get data and to seed it in our users seeder. Now to get the data, we have to use db connection, and here with the connection we have to use the name here. So one is MySQL, one is old MySQL. So I will use old MySQL. I will get the table users, and I will get all the data, and these are the users. Now for the moment let's dump this data, and in our database seeder we will call it. So this call user seeder. So let's see if the database seeder works. Now I'm inside the Docker container, so I'm not in my machine, and here run php artisan db seed. We can see that we dumped the information here. So the data from the other app was retrieved. Now let's seed it to our database. So we need to loop the users as user, and we have to create user create here, and we have to put every field manually. So the ID will be user ID here. So we need the first name, we need the last name, email, so password, even created that and updated that. And in the end is influencer. Now let's try to seed the database again, but before, I don't want to override with my previous data. I will do php artisan migrate fresh. So we have an error, connection refused. So if we run commands to our inside the container we have to remove this Docker for Mac localhost. So we have to put the IP here, and the port should be this one, because inside the Docker container we can use directly this port. So let's do it again. PHP artisan db migrate fresh. So I refreshed the database, and now PHP artisan db seed. We got an error. Field email doesn't have a default value. So apparently we made a mistake. So we forgot the email. Let's do it again. And the table was seeded successfully. Let's open the database now, and we can see every user is the same as the other database.